Okay, we're live. Thank you.
Okay, please proceed then.
Okay, I'll do the roll call for the board member attendance. Paul Mitchell,
Here.
Mark Schadenberg,
Here.
Dean Trinkowski,
Yes, I'm here.
Brian Petrie,
I am present.
and we have regrets from Sandy Levin.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And then we'll start over and we will approve of the agenda. Paul Mitchell has moved that. Is there a seconder for that motion? Dean, the second. Any discussion on that? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Mark, if we could have your camera on, if it's possible, just to see you voting, that would be helpful. Thank you. And are there any declarations of pecuniary interest? I'm not seeing any, so we will go to the minutes. Is there a mover for the minutes of the March 26, 2024 meeting of the Hearings Committee? Moved by Mark, seconded by Paul. Paul, please. Discussion on those. Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. I don't believe there's any business arising for the minutes. So I will ask for a motion. Just want to clarify with Michelle. We need a motion to go into hear the application, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Could we have a motion to hear application 5424, please?
I'll move that.
Moved by Dean.
I'll second it.
Seconded by Paul. Any discussion on that? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. We'll now go into our hearings. So we are now going to conduct a hearing under Section 28 of the Conservation Authorities Act in respect of an application by LDS Consultants, Inc., care of Rebecca Walker on behalf of landowners Bluestone Properties, Inc., care of Marty Turgeon. Is that the correct pronunciation of that?
Yes, it is. Thanks for asking.
You're welcome. Application 5424 to permit development within a riverine flood hazard associated with a river or stream valley and within an area regulated by Upper Thames River Conservation Authority at 412, 418, and 450 Oxford Street West in the City of London. The authority has adopted regulations under Section 28 of the Conservation Authorities Act, which requires the permission of the authority for development within an area regulated by the authority in order to ensure no adverse effects on the control of flooding, erosion, or dynamic beaches, alteration to a wet course, or interference with a wetland. The staff has reviewed this request from the applicant, and a copy of the staff report has been given to the applicant. The Conservation Authorities Act, Section 2812, provides that permission requires under a regulation made under Clause 1B or C shall not be refused or granted subject to conditions unless the person requesting permission has been given the opportunity to require a hearing before the authority, or if the authority so directs, before the authority's executive committee. In holding this hearing, the hearing committee is to determine whether or not the application is to be allowed and a permit is to be issued with or without conditions. In doing so, we can only consider the material that is before us, the staff report, such evidence as may be given, and the submissions to be made on behalf of the applicant. The proceedings will be conducted according to the Statutory Powers Procedure Act under Section 5 of the Canada Evidence Act. A witness may refuse to answer any question on the grounds that the answer may tend to incriminate the person or may tend to establish his or her liability to a civil proceeding at the instance of the Crown or of any person. The procedure is in general shall be informal without the evidence being before it being given under oath or affirmation. If the applicant has any questions to ask the hearing committee or the authority representative, they must be directed to the chair, which is myself. I will ask staff to please introduce the hearing participants at this time.
Good afternoon, committee members. Through the chair, I would like to follow suit with the previous hearing and ask that we go around and introduce ourselves, starting with the applicant and those invited to attend on behalf of the applicant, followed by committee members and then the UTRCA staff. I'll start. My name is Jessica Schneitman. I'm Land Use Regulations Officer at Upper Thames.
My name is Marty Turgeon, the applicant representing Bluestone Properties.
My name is Rebecca Walker. I'm with LDS Consultants and we prepared the background documents.
Is there anybody who'd like to go next, or is that all of the applicant?
Uh,
Sorry, good afternoon. I'm Ashley Ramalou, Director of Water, Wastewater, and Stormwater with the City of London, and here in support of the applicant.
Shauna Chambers, Division Manager of Stormwater Engineering, also from the City of London, in support of the applicant.
Paul Titus, Program Manager, Stormwater Engineering in the City of London. I'm here in support of the applicant.
I'm sure this is easier in person. It's always the Zoom thing of who goes when, right? So.
Bill Trenuth, Water Resources Engineer with AECOM Canada Limited, here in support of the applicant.
I guess I can go first. My name is Brian Petrie. I'm the chair of the Hearings Committee and the Board of Directors, and the Mayor of Ingersoll, and been on the board since 2014.
I'm Paul Mitchell. I'm Councillor, Township of Zora, second term on the board and first term on the Hearings Committee.
Mark Schattenberg, Woodstock City Council, second term on City Council, second term on UTRCA Board, and first term on Hearings Committee.
Good afternoon, Dean Trentowski, Deputy Mayor for the Municipality of West Perth. Elected to Council 2014, elected to Deputy Mayor 2022. Currently a Vice Chair of Upper Thames River Conservation Authority Hearings Committee member, and I started with Upper Thames Board on following the 2022 election.
Okay. I'll start. We've got a number of Upper Thames staff here in a meeting room at the office. I'm Jenna Lane, the Manager of Environmental Planning and Regulations.
I'm Christine Crane, Land Use Planner at Cover London. Tracy Abbott, the General Manager.
Michelle Vigilante, Administrative Assistant. I'm taking the minutes today.
And I'm Emily Chandler, Marketing and Communication Specialist and running the meeting online.
Go ahead, Grant.
And I am Grant Inglis, the solicitor for the Upper Thames River Conservation Authority.
And I think that concludes it, unless I do see a Ben Defoe here as well.
Yeah, I think Ben's here for the next hearing. He may just be waiting for this one to end. Yeah.
Fair enough. I will second here. Okay. So we are sitting as the Hearings Committee. I thank everybody for coming today. I will, we've already done the declaration of pecuniary interest. We've done the roll call and staff has introduced. And so staff will indicate the nature of the location and the subject application and the conclusions, please. So please, staff, if you'd like to present your report, please go ahead. Sorry, I'll just back up here. What's going to happen is the staff will report, and then they can answer. We can ask questions of staff report. The applicant then can give their information that they like to have in the same process, and then the Hearings Committee will take that information and deliberate that, and then we'll try to come to an answer today. If we can't, that after deliberations, you never know how they're going to go, then we can move forward with later on. I don't know if that's going to be the case today. We should have a pretty. We'll see how it goes, but that's kind of the process we're going to follow. So I'll turn it back over to staff to present their report, please.
Thank you. I'll share screen and open up the presentation. Okay, thank you everyone for being here. So this is regarding 412, 418, and 450 Oxford Street West in the City of London. So the recommendation, I'll start with that and I'll probably end with this as well, that the hearing committee of the UTRCA approved the issuance of a development interference with wetlands and watercourses permit, application 5424, made pursuant of section 28 of the Conservation Authorities Act for proposed development, specifically the placement of fill material within a riverine flood hazard associated with a river or stream valley and area regulated by the UTRCA at 412, 418, and 450 Oxford Street West, City of London, Ontario. And that revisions to the plans be made to mitigate impacts to adjacent properties if deemed necessary through UTRCA review and acceptance of the pending technical attachment to the Appendix 4 memorandum dated April 5th, 2024, attached to the recently UTRCA board approved 2-zone flood policy area. And that given this property is located within a recently UTRCA board approved 2-zone flood policy area, future development applications for these lands will be reviewed by authority staff to ensure compliance with the existing board approved policies for development within the flood fringe and floodway. So the proposed application, application 5424, has been submitted for proposed development, temporary stockpiling of clean fill material on lands entirely regulated by the UTRCA. So here's a location map that was part of the hearings report. So the properties are in red. You can see them, the bigger one is 450, and then the other two are 412 and 418. So this is located just west of downtown City of London. This is Wonderland Road North to south, and then this is Oxford Street West. So it's just east of that intersection. And you can see here, this is the Mud Creek channel that goes along and through the properties. Okay, so this was attachment 2. This is from the City of London zoning. You can see here, here it's zoned, half of it's zoned RO2, and then DC. For the life of me, I can't remember what those mean. If there are questions about that, I can clarify that. And then this other area, so the southeast, and then 418 and 412 over here are zoned open space 4. So this map gives a good visual indication of where the Mud Creek channel currently lies. So it currently goes through between the properties of 450 Oxford Street and then 418 and 412. So with the Mud Creek Channel EA, this, which will be happening in parallel to this project, Mud Creek Channel will be relocated over here, so to the east of 412. Okay, so this is an excerpt from map from the flood 2-zone concept memorandum that was provided to the UTRCA board, and which is in Appendix 3, I believe. So I just wanted to share this to show where the properties are. So this is 450 Oxford Street, there's 418 and 412. Here's the new realignment with the Mud Creek Channel. That would be part of the Phase 2B Mud Creek Channel works, which would kind of end right over here. So at 415 Oxford. So this yellow boundary area, that encompasses the whole area that is 2-zone concept area. So where UTRCA board has approved the 2-zone concept and where those policies were applied. So you can see that these properties are within. Some background, lands were identified in the Mud Creek Environmental Assessment in 2017 as a potential location for future development. So I just wanted to share section 4.3.17 in red here. So the 2-zone concept may be an appropriate management alternative for development areas within the Mud Creek subwatershed if appropriate measures are taken to protect development from flooding within the flood fringe. So just some background, how we kind of came to where we are. So background, the applicants, they have been looking to develop this property for a number of years now, and they were advised previously that any development plans for these lands were to await the completion of the Mud Creek EA. As well, it was discussions were had that new planning applications could possibly be brought forward in parallel with the implementation of the channel works. However, it was noted that until all of the required flood mitigation works had been completed, it would be challenging for the authority to support the approval of any planning applications or Section 28 permit applications on flood susceptible lands. The City of London has submitted an application to the UTRCA for the Mud Creek Phase 2B Channel Rehabilitation Project. So that's the area that I pointed out in the previous image with the yellow outline. This project extends a national corridor from the CN rail at the southerly limit, just north of Oxford Street West. As part of the channel rehabilitation works, and in order to reduce the costs of relocating excess fill material, the city wishes to place fill that would be removed from the channel as part of this project onto the privately owned lands located at 412, 418, and 450 Oxford Street West. So the proposal to fill undeveloped privately owned properties in the floodway is contrary to UTRCA, City of London, and provincial policy. However, now that the lands are in the flood fringe of an approved two-zone concept area, the opportunity to fill undeveloped properties as a floodproofing measure would be consistent with UTRCA policies. And I just wanted to go back. So typically, so here I mentioned how new planning applications and Section 28 permit applications would need to wait until the channel works were completed. So typically we look for the channel works to be completed and as-built to be provided, just to confirm what the new hazards are and the hazard limits. So this proposal, so on April 9th of this year, we received an application from LDS Consultants, care of Rebecca Walker, on behalf of Bluestone Properties Incorporated, care of Marty Turgan. I don't know if I pronounced it well as Brian did. Sorry, Marty. For the proposed temporary stockpiling of fill material. Okay, the proposal was intended to work in parallel with the removal and relocation of excess fill from the City of London Phase 2B Mud Creek Channel Works. It is understood that Bluestone Properties will continue to work with the City of London and the UTRCA to complete the appropriate planning and regulatory review, including floodproofing, to support future residential development opportunities on the lands. So here's attachment 4B. So this is what we received from LDS to support the application. This is the base drawing is from the Phase 2B Mud Creek Channel Works, and it shows where the Bluestone properties are. So in green is 450 Oxford Street, in blue, and then just beside the blue is 412 and 418 Oxford Street. So you can see in yellow, this is where the channel currently is. And then in kind of this dotted area, that's where it's proposed. So something important to point out. So for the two-zone concept area, it was under the assumption that this work has already been completed. So there's kind of the three different scenarios. The current scenario where the channel goes through between the Bluestone properties here in yellow, the scenario where the Mud Creek 2B project has been completed, and the impacts of the flood hazard from that work, so where it's relocated here. And then the third scenario where this Phase 2B has been completed and there's fill located on properties within the two-zone concept area, including these Bluestone properties. So here's another image just showing Stage 1, which would be relocating the temporary soil stockpiles at 450 Oxford Street and all the appropriate erosion and sediment control measures. And then Stage 2, where they would move some of the fill from 450 Oxford Street onto 418 and 412, and then potentially bring additional fill material. So this 418 is currently being used as a construction laydown area for the city project phase 2A, which was construction of the culvert on Oxford Street. So I'll go back here. And so they use this area as a laydown area for that construction, and then will be used again for the 2B. However, I'll let the applicant speak to that. Okay, so this discussion analysis, the application has been evaluated for conformity with our general flood hazard policies contained with Section 4 of the UTRCA Environmental Planning Policy Manual dated June 2006. Applicable policy, so you've probably seen this one often, development. So I just want to point to C and D. So development is defined as site grading or the temporary or permanent placing, dumping, or removal of any material originating on the site or elsewhere. Noting that this application would be defined as development. Subsection 28(1) of the Conservation Authorities Act states that no person shall carry on or permit another person to carry on development activities in areas that are within the authority's area of jurisdiction and are river or stream valleys. Subject to subsection 28.11, an authority may issue a permit to a person to engage in an activity specified in the permit that would otherwise be prohibited by section 28 if, in the opinion of the authority, the activity is not likely to affect the control of flooding, erosion, dynamic beaches, or unstable soil or bedrock. B, the activity is not likely to create conditions or circumstances that, in the event of a natural hazard, might jeopardize the health or safety of persons or result in the damage or destruction of property. Here are some general flood hazard policies from the UTRCA Planning and Policy Manual, Section 4, Section 4.2.2.2, flood fringe, development and site alteration is permitted in identified flood fringe areas, subject to satisfying floodproofing requirements through the UTRCA Section 28 permit process. I won't read A and B, but I will point out that we do have specific policies for residential, industrial, and commercial. So within the same policy manual, section 4.2.5, watercourse and floodplain alteration policies. 1, major floodplain alterations, including placement of fill to create a building lot, and major watercourse alterations, including enclosures, are generally not permitted. Such alterations may be considered where justification is provided through a sub-watershed study, an environmental assessment, or similar comprehensive study, and are subject to conformity with municipal planning documents. All right, so discussion on those policies. The proposed temporary stockpiling of fill material for 412, 418, and 450 Oxford Street, as currently proposed. So it meets current policies as a floodproofing measure. While this application does not include a development application, which would address specific floodproofing requirements, it is our understanding that the applicant will be coming forward with a future development proposal. Through appropriate planning and regulation review, any requirements, including floodproofing, safe dry vehicle and pedestrian access and parking, shall be addressed for all future developments. It also promotes cost-effective and responsible soils management for the City of London's project in accordance with the MECP, Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks, excess soils regulation. With respect to flood fringe areas, it is not standard practice to allow full augmentation of a site with fill due to the potential loss of flood storage. And it is also not standard practice to allow generic augmentation of a flood fringe property without a development proposal. Generally, when staff review for new structures within a flood fringe, it is our standard requirement to limit the amount of fill required to be placed just around the structures so as not to impact or reduce the flood storage provided by the flood fringe. Conclusion, so therefore, the proposed temporary fill placement does not meet all of the standard review criteria for staff to issue the necessary Section 28 approvals. It is recommended that these works be approved by the UTRCA Hearings Committee, given that 1, Mud Creek EA was completed for the broader area and identified these lands for future developments. 2, there are a number of benefits to completing this work in parallel with the City of London Phase 2B Mud Creek Channel works, rather than waiting for the works to be completed. 3, it's understood that the applicant will continue to work with the City of London and the UTRCA to complete the appropriate planning and regulatory review, including floodproofing, safe dry vehicle and pedestrian access to support future residential development opportunities on the property. And I'll just go back to the recommendation. Sorry, the text is so small. Hopefully everyone can read it okay. It's also in the hearings report. So just going back to this, staff recommendation is approval. And I just want to point out, so for this one, that revisions to the plans we made to mitigate impacts to adjacent properties if deemed necessary through UTRCA review and acceptance of the pending technical attachment. So just so the committee members are aware, the city is still pending providing UTRCA with a technical attachment in support of the Appendix 4 memorandum. There were still some questions that needed to be answered and more information that would be needed. We're unclear what the impact is for this, which is noted in the attachment 4.3 for the 2-zone concept area, and we hope that mitigation can help to address that. Okay, and that's the end of my presentation. If there's any questions, please let me know. Oh, sorry, Brian, I think you're muted.
You're muted.
There we go. That helps. I totally do not miss the days of Zoom. Anyway.
No.
Anyway, sorry, I misspoke earlier, and we're going to go to the applicant now, and then we'll have questions afterwards. We'll follow the procedures to make sure it's the same every time. And so the applicant and or their agent, if you have any material you'd like to present, please do so.
Through the chair, I can add that we are supportive of the staff report. We're agreeable certainly to ongoing discussions with the City of London and Upper Thames, and certainly there'll be a lot of coordination needed to undertake this project. We don't have additional materials to provide today. There was a lot of information provided last week through the City of London's 2-zone Appendix 4 memo update. But I am here with Rebecca Walker, as you know, our QP for the project, and we can answer and address any questions that there may be, but we're satisfied with Upper Thames' recommendation and certainly looking forward, as I said, to moving forward and working collaboratively with the city and the authority. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we'll go to staff and the Conservation Authority's agents may question the applicant and or their agent if reasonably required for a full and fair disclosure of matters presented at the hearing. Does staff or agent have any questions of the applicant? I am not seeing any. So the applicant and or their agent may question the Conservation Authority staff and or their agent if reasonably required to full and fair disclosure of matters presented at the hearings. Are there any questions from the applicant or their agents? No, I'm seeing no there as well.
No.
So the hearing committee will question, if necessary, both the staff and the applicant and our agent. Are there any questions from the hearings committee on this application? Paul, please.
Okay, I just want to be perfectly clear in my mind. The application is for temporary placement of this fill as part of the excavation of Mud Creek. As the intention is that as this project moves on, there will be a need for fill for further development as part of the two-zone development. So if we grant this permit, essentially what would we be allowing is that this fill doesn't have to be trucked away and then fill trucked back in. Is my understanding of what I just stated, is that correct?
Through the chair, yes, that is correct. We will be coming forward with an additional Section 28 permit application as the development details are more defined, and Bluestone Properties should be in a position to file further Section 28 requirements, possibly in as much as a year from now. But we just really wanted to get working with the city and working within their project area and accepting the fill in order to provide this public-private benefit. But yeah, I that addresses your question, sir?
Yes, it does. And thank you for
Thank you.
clarifying that. That's my only question, Chair.
Thank you. Further questions? Mark, please.
Yeah, thanks a lot. From the chair, I guess, through to the applicant. I'm looking at the big map, the one that's with the LDS name, looks like a large survey, and it talks about a temporary berm. Can you explain the science between, I guess, putting in the temporary berm and then obviously because it's temporary at some point to remove it? And that would be just east of the 450 Oxford address. Is it because the river's going to get relocated or the creek gets relocated? I just want to understand sort of the timelines. What happens first? What happens second?
Through the chair, I'd like to ask Rebecca if I can.
Yes, I can speak to that. The temporary soil stockpile or the berm is generally for the topsoil, which would be stripped from the area where the soils that are coming from the Mud Creek project will be imported to the site. So we don't need that additional topsoil. So a portion of that topsoil, it's temporarily stockpiled on site and then taken off of site to an appropriate receiver. But the intent there is just to have a place on site where that material can be stored while they're doing the staging, and then that material will eventually be removed. So the timing of that we've not yet confirmed, but it would happen fairly early in the process. It's just a staging measure at this point.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Further questions? I have a couple questions regarding, so the two-stage flood approach has been approved by the board, but it hasn't been implemented yet, and that's what it seems that we're trying to do here. And so I'm concerned about, I've also heard that there hasn't been able to do work on how this would impact the watershed. Is that correct? As knowing how this would impact flood storage downstream with the stockpiling? I'll direct that to staff.
Through the chair, I can share the attachment, the section that I was referring to in one of the recommendations, and hopefully that provides some clarification. So this is page 10 in the attachment, or page 23 in the hearing committee agenda. This is under, so within the appendix 4, which the memorandum speaks to, this is a section 4A. So impacts of proposed development, flood levels at the site and upstream. So the area, the section that I'm referring to is here highlighted in yellow. The evaluation found that there would be an increased risk to vehicles and pedestrians for both Oxford Street and Proudfoot Lane. So we're just looking for the technical attachment, which would be part of this, to speak to that in a bit more detail. So that's something we're working closely with the City of London staff and ACOM staff to clarify that. So we're optimistic that this can be clarified and hope that mitigation can help to address this. Specifically, it just with flood depths and velocities. So we just want, it's unclear what the impact is, and we would like to be a bit more clear.
Okay. Certainly a concern, given that there is residents there. I want to make sure that we're not adding to a problem that could increase. Is the city confident that they can accommodate emergency access in the case of flooding caused by this stockpiling?
Through the chair, the city has been working diligently on the modeling in this area. And I think what the report's trying to suggest, and I may transfer over to Bill in a moment, ACOM, our consultant, but that the Oxford Street currently would be impassable, so to speak, with the 0.3, it'll be in excess of the 0.3 meters under the 250. So therefore the fill, it wouldn't exacerbate that more than it already is in a sense, but I will hand that over to Bill.
Sure. Thank you, Shauna. Yep. Through the chair, it's worth clarifying that that statement shared by Jessica Schneitman refers to the fact that under proposed conditions, the realignment of the Mud Creek Channel is anticipated to lower water levels locally in this area by approximately 20 centimeters. However, the placement of fill on the subject properties under discussion today would result, and the neighboring properties within the two-zone fringe area would result in a net increase of flood elevations of approximately 6 centimeters from the proposed condition in the absence of fill, which I suppose I should rephrase that to say that's still a net decrease of approximately 14 centimeters below existing conditions. Apologies if there's some confusion there, but happy to provide further clarification on that matter.
Yeah, just as a follow-up to that. So the current situation, I was aware of Oxford Street from our two-foot discussion at the board, but Proudfoot it currently floods as well in the same sort of circumstances is what I'm hearing, correct?
That's correct, yes.
Okay, thank you. Believe that's all the questions that I have there. Dean, did you have any questions?
None at this time, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Okay. So I'll just ask one more time if any committee member has any further questions. I'm not seeing any. So the hearings committee will now move into deliberations we will separate from the rest of the participants because this is an electronic meeting. In the event that the hearings committee is able to make a decision within a reasonable amount of time, the hearing committee will reconvene the hearing and announce its decision. In the event that committee wishes for more time, which is to consider its decision, the hearing will be adjourned. The applicant and staff will be advised the decision will be made by the hearings committee, which decision will be communicated with both the applicant and staff. So at that time, I'll just give anybody a last chance. Does anything else have to contribute to anything? Seeing not, I'll ask for a motion for the hearings committee to move into a deliberation.
I'll move, Mr. Chair.
So moved by Dean and seconded by Paul. Is there any discussion on that? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? That is carried, and we will let you know how long we are. Thank you. So if it's possible, just to have the committee members and the solicitor stay in the room, and yourself, Michelle, for notes. Thank you.
Emily will move people into the waiting room.
Yep.
And we'll bring you back over again. People are moving. Yes. Let's just finish it. I just want to make sure I put everyone. And Brand stays on, and now we're gonna turn off the live stream.
Okay.
Just give us a moment. And now we're gonna turn off the live stream.
Okay.
Just give us a moment. And now we're gonna turn off the live stream. Just give us a moment. That's all right. You're live. You can run back in. Okay.
Okay, is everybody here then? Okay, well, good news. The committee has voted to approve the application, and that's based off staff recommendations that are contained in the report. And so we'll get the official documents out to everybody, so they have those, but the wording of the motion is the exact same as in the recommendation. So that's what's going forward. And thank everybody for their time today. And
Thank
happy
you.
digging.
Thank you.
And with, no, we have another application, so we'll deal with that one.
There, now you're unmuted. All right, we'll just need a motion to adjourn the hearing for application 424 when we're ready.
Motion to adjourn this hearing. Moved by Paul, second by Dean. Discussion. Seeing none. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. And we will wait for our applicants to appear. I've promised I have got my script better this time. So Michelle, if you could just let me know if when everybody's here, and then, or if everybody's admitted, then we can begin.
Here,
Montana's still connecting to audio. Here. No Kelly. Jeff Wolf is here. Can you scroll down to this? Yeah. And Montana is connected, fully connected. Yeah, so everyone is here.
Everyone's here. Okay. I will move on to our next item on the agenda, which is application 84-23. Is there a motion to sit as the hearings committee on this application? Moved by Paul, and here's the motion to sit as a hearing committee to consider application 84-23 by the town of St. Mary's, care of Andre Morin, the town of St. Mary's, to permit development within an area regulated by the Upper Thames River Conservation Authority at 80 Water Street North in the town of St. Mary's, Ontario. Paul, you're still good to move that? Excellent. And seconder, Mark, discussion on that? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed, that is carried. I will now ask again if the hearings committees have any conflicts of interest to declare on this matter. Seeing none, I will now ask Michelle to call a roll call for the committee, please.
Paul Mitchell,
Present.
Mark Schattenberg,
Present.
Dean Trentowski,
Yes, present.
Brian Petrie,
Present.
and Sandy Levin sends his regrets.
Excellent. I will now give my opening remarks. We are now going to conduct a hearing under Section 28 of the Conservation Authorities Act in respect of an application by the town of St. Mary's, care of Andre Morin of the town of St. Mary's, application number 8423 to permit development within an area regulated by Upper Thames River Conservation Authority under Ontario Regulation 4124, formerly Ontario Regulation 15706, development interference with the wetland and water courses, and made pursuant to Section 28 of the Conservation Authorities Act on 80 Water Street North in the town of St. Mary's, Ontario. The authority has adopted regulations under Section 28 of the Conservation Authorities Act, which requires the permission of the authority for development within an area regulated by the authority in order to ensure no adverse effects on the control of flooding, erosion, dynamic beaches, or pollution or conservation of land, or to permit alterations to a watercourse or interference with a wetland. The staff have reviewed this request for the applicant, and a copy of the staff report has been given to the applicant. The Conservation Authorities Act, Section 28, provides that permission required under a regulation made under Clause 1B or C shall not be refused or granted, subject to conditions, unless the person requesting permission has been given the opportunity to require a hearing before the authority, and if the authority so directs, before the authority's executive committee. In holding this hearing, the hearings committee is determined whether or not the application is to be allowed and a permit is to be issued with or without conditions. In doing so, we can only consider the material that is before us, the staff report, and such evidence as may be given, and the submissions to be made on behalf of the applicant. The proceedings will be conducted according to Statutory Powered Procedures Act under Section 5 of the Canada Evidence Act. A witness may refuse to answer any question on the ground that the answer may tend to incriminate the person or may tend to establish his or her liability to a civil proceeding at the instance of the Crown or any other person. The procedures generally shall be informal without the evidence being given under oath or affirmation. If the applicant has any questions to ask the hearings committee or the authority representative, they must be directed to the chair, which is myself, and I will be asking staff to please introduce the hearing participants at this time.
Yeah, I'll start with myself. My name is Ben Defoe. I'm a land use regulations officer with the Upper Thames. Brian, I didn't know if we wanted to go around and introduce everyone themselves, or did you want me to introduce the committee?
I can play a role here. These Zoom meetings, they bring back bad memories, and they're a little bit harder to do than in person. So if I just call on your name, if you could just give yourself an introduction. We'll start with the hearing committee's members. Dean, please.
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dean Trentowski, Deputy Mayor for the Municipality of West Perth, Upper Thames Vice Chair on the board, and currently sitting on the hearing committee as well.
Paul, please.
Paul Mitchell, serving my second term as a councillor for the Township of Zora. My second term as a member of the board for the Upper Thames, and I'm a member of the hearings committee.
Mark, please.
Yeah, Mark Schattenberg, Woodstock City Council, second term on Woodstock Council, second term on the UTRCA board, and I'm just on the hearings committee for the first time as of the beginning of this calendar year.
My name is Brian Petrie. I'm the current chair of the board and the chair of the hearings committee. Been on the board since 2014 and current mayor of Ingersoll. And then we will go to the applicant. Andre, please.
Hi, thank you. My name is Andre Morin. I'm the Director of Corporate Services and Treasurer with the Town of St. Mary's. I acted as the champion for this project. Do you want me to go through the rest of our members, or will you call them out?
Yes, please. Go ahead.
Okay, as well on the line, we have our Mayor, Al Strathby. We have Councillor Jim Craigmile. We have our CAO, Brent Kittmer, on the line as well. Kelly Deeks Johnson was supposed to join us. She's our manager of tourism and economic development, who was the lead on the project, but she had a personal emergency, so she's not available with us today. Jeff Wolf is on the line. He's our infrastructure manager with the Town of St. Mary's, who's responsible for public works and our incident response plan. Montana Wilson is our third-party engineer from Grit Engineering that assisted us with this project. And then Alex Letso also assisted Grit Engineering and was the engineer that designed our dock plans.
Thank you. Welcome, Your Worship, and everybody from St. Mary's. I'll turn it over to staff to introduce, and we'll start with the boardroom, please.
Great, I'm Jenna Lane. I'm the manager of our environmental planning and regulations program here at Upper Thames.
I'm Tracy Ann, I'm the general manager.
Michelle Vigilante, I'm administrative assistant. I'll be taking the minutes today. And Emily Chandler, communications and marketing specialist.
Go ahead, Grant.
And I'm Grant Inglis. I'm the authority solicitor.
And Montana, please.
Yeah, so Montana, owner of Grit Engineering, and as Andre said, acting with the town for the design.
I apologize. Sorry, I missed you there. So, okay. So thank you very much for that. So I will just give a brief overview of how this will work today. First, staff will present the staff report included in the agenda. Then the applicant can present their material. Then we'll have an opportunity for questions of both those parties by each other. And then the hearings committee can ask questions. At that point, the hearings committee will then, when that's all wrapped up, move into deliberations, which can take short or long time. We never know. And then if it takes a short time, we'll be able to come back with a decision. And then if it takes a long time, we may have to come back at a different time. But those are just the standard proceedings. And so we will continue with that. So I'll ask staff to present the report included on the agenda, please.
Good. I'm just gonna share my screen here. And if everyone can confirm they can see that. Okay. So this application, as Brian had mentioned, is for 80 Water Street North in the town of St. Mary's. This is also known as Milt Dunnell Park. It's a public park in the town. And the nature of the proposal is for a removable floating dock. In recent years, the town has decided to revitalize Milt Dunnell Park within the town, and this dock is a part of that project. So the proposed dock is about 29 feet by 31 feet. You can see here on the diagram, it has a residential kayak launch as well as an accessible launch too. It's a fairly large dock, and it's meant for all users to access the river from the park in the town. So we'll give a little background on the site. The site's regulated by the Conservation Authority due to the flooding and erosion hazard land associated with the North Thames River and Trout Creek. We have the property, the park itself, highlighted in red here on the map. We also have the flood hazard in this map. You can see the North Thames River to the west of the park and then Trout Creek to the south of the park. So the park's kind of at the meeting point between Trout Creek and the North Thames River, where the flood risk is very high. We can see in green where the proposed dock is, the applicant has decided where to put it. So you'll see it there. we'll come back to flood hazard, but I also wanted to mention that it's regulated by the Conservation Authority due to the erosion hazard. For the benefit of the committee, I've left some contours on this map. They're 1 meter contours. What I wanted to show with this map is the fairly gentle, flat area where the dock's being proposed. We want to say erosion is not a concern here. As you travel east on the site toward Emily Street, you can see more of that defined erosion hazard. But the dock, because it's a dock, it has to be in the river. And because it's in the river, it's more so in the valley land where it is flat. So no concerns there. To add, we've attached some photos to our presentation here that just shows the bank of the river. This was a site visit in December of 2022, where we took a photo of the proposed location as to where it is. So this photo is taken within that green circle. The photo is facing north toward the Grand Trunk Trail Bridge. I think that's Sarnia Bridge. So we have a winter picture. We wanted to show a picture of where it would be during the operational season. Again, wanting to highlight the flat nature of the area where erosion is not as much of a concern. But flooding is a concern here. This area, St. Mary's, is highly susceptible to flooding. It's been observed through a variety of flood events in the past 15 years alone. You can see the flood hazard extends across Water Street and all the way almost up to Emily Street, kind of at the base of that slope that was highlighted earlier in the slide. So when this area floods, it floods deep and the river runs quite fast. So we've included some photos in the report. It provides photographic evidence of a variety of flood events on the subject lands. So April 2008, December 2008, February 2009, and February 2018. Although this isn't the area of the proposal, I want to highlight that. The area of the proposal, if you can see that striped roof building, it's just kind of to the northwest of that along the shore. So that being said, it's still high water. It's still fast moving water. There is a risk, and we wanted to highlight with these photos that these aren't the regulatory event. These are just typical flood events within the town. Albeit this isn't during the operational season of the dock. They're more so those spring, fall, winter events where the risk of flooding is a little bit higher. So this many flood events over a relatively short period of time is indicative of the higher flood risk nature of the park. One of the risks that staff were concerned about as part of the application and as to why there was so much consultation is because the risk of this dock becoming detached during a regulatory event is very, very high. If it's just a stock dock from Easy Dock that's put there with no contingencies or no extra engineering to help anchor it, the risk of it becoming detached is very high. So we did work with the town to come up with an application that satisfied and was our requirements and was complete. I'm providing an excerpt out of some of the plans just to briefly describe the dock. I'll leave it to the town to describe the fine details, but basically the dock's designed to be cross-tethered to two 2,600-pound concrete blocks. The concrete's attached to the dock using two heavy-duty mooring chains, and then it's additionally anchored by 4 vertical stud pipes, which are these here, if you can see my mouse. So these dig into the riverbed. It should be noted too, and we've mentioned it in the report, that these don't add any additional structural support to the dock. They basically just allow for the dock to kind of float up and float down along the pipes during higher or lower water, as well as provide some stability for the users as they walk on and off the dock. So, you walk on the dock sinks a little bit, it moves down the pipe, it just kind of keeps them in channel. So there were some engineering review and considerations as well as requirements that we had asked for from the applicant. because we reviewed the standard specifications that the company EasyDock provided, and they only considered lateral loads from wind and waves. So EasyDock, the company, has a set of standard specifications provided by their engineers that sign off on the dock as if it were in a lake situation or anchored in a lake bed. Typical pressures on a dock in a lake would be wind and waves. So we wanted a little bit more in terms of application requirements. It is kind of notable that Upper Thames ourselves, we own and operate EasyDocks within offline ponds and within our reservoirs. We locate these docks in typically protected areas or reservoirs or offline ponds where depths and velocity of flows are reduced. So it's a little bit different than putting a dock in a river versus putting a dock in a reservoir. Putting a dock in a river is subject to lateral pressures from river flows and higher risk of flood events. The same goes with a pond. So some considerations that we did look at in terms of engineering requirements for this dock were things like debris loading. So during a flood event, you get a lot of debris that comes down the river, and there's a risk of that debris resting up on the side of the dock, adding additional pressure to the dock, as well as river flows, typically that put lateral pressure on the dock and the associated anchoring system. So if it's not being hit by debris or added pressure of debris, there's also just the current of a river during a regular operational period, as well as during a higher flood event. So those calculation inputs were basically considered based on a stream gauge upstream. It considered the operational time frame, so roughly between May and September. It kind of picked out the highest historic maximum instantaneous discharge period. So that kind of references the highest amount of pressure that would be on the dock based on historic instances of flooding. So that was an event in July of the year 2000. The other thing too that the applicant considered as part of the engineering was some of the geometry of those flows and how they act on the dock, as well as mooring chain length. So again, if your chains are too small or too short during a flood event, you'll run out of chain and eventually the dock becomes submerged. Based on the application, they provided enough length that the dock wouldn't become submerged in a regulatory event. And not sink and not have that added buoyancy force from the dock trying to float up and putting pressure on the whole system itself. So what this dock's designed for, it's designed to not become detached during a major storm event based on history, but we wanted to highlight it's not designed to the regulatory flood event. So because it wasn't designed to the regulatory flood event, there are further requirements in the application. A contingency plan was developed by the town, detailing protocol to be followed for the removal of the dock prior to large storm events. It provided measurable parameters for when the dock should be removed during a major storm event, and it detailed the operational season. So we want to make clear too, as part of this application, the dock isn't proposed to be installed during seasons with traditionally higher instances of flooding. It's from the SOP here, it's May to September. It's not in winter, early spring, or fall. And it also outlines the steps of safe removal when water levels reach a staff gauge that will be installed on shore. So built into the contingency is if there's a storm event or a flood event and the water gets up to a certain level, being the staff gauge, that puts staff into action to be able to safely go down into the park and remove the dock and provides them enough time to get it out before there is a flood. So that's a built-in contingency. So there's a lot of discussion and consideration over the past couple of years to develop this complete application. Because our policy manual doesn't specifically speak to docks. So when we received this application, initially we used an interim staff guidance document that was developed in the summer of 2020. And it was basically a response to an increased number of dock requests in the watershed. So there were two parameters that the dock didn't meet based on that interim policy, and it's all because of its location. So it was within the north branch of the Thames River, Trout Creek, where the risk of riverine flooding and subsequent detachment is high. We've discussed that. And the location is downstream of a flood control structure where the risk of detachment is high. So there are board approved policies that do address different applications within the watershed, and they can be applied to docks. Number one, when you look at any application, we try to locate and avoid where there's an unacceptable risk to public health and safety. Generally, we try to direct development away from that. So highlighting unacceptable risk to public health or safety for that one. And then we'll highlight from here a couple others, because there are exceptions to this policy, and they do involve passive, low-intensity recreational uses associated with public parks, outdoor recreation and education, trail systems. So this was one we also used. It's recognized that any dock must be located within hazard land by nature. I think this policy considers this exception allowing for water access points supporting low-intensity recreational uses, provided there's justification. So where do we get that justification when we look at this policy? It's built in this policy as well as built in another policy within our manual. And that would be, sorry, my Zoom bar is right in front of the number. I think it's 4.2.12 is where development site alteration may only be permitted in hazard lands, provided that all of the following conditions are implemented. So it basically says when we can, we locate and avoid. If there's no chance of locating and avoid and we can reduce the risk, we apply a couple policies depending on the nature of the application. That being number 7 and number 2. So we also pull out this policy as well as the minor works can be permitted within the floodplain subject to satisfying the authority's requirements. And we pull out all the relevant criteria for a dock when we look at what does a complete application need. It needs to show that there's no unacceptable risk to public health or safety, property damage. So the biggest public health or safety risk, property damage risk with a dock becoming detached is that it may block a bridge, it may block a culvert, it may hit town infrastructure, it may cause issues that way. That risk of property damage has to be minimized through site, facility, and/or landscape design and flood emergency plans. We've reviewed the flood contingency response plan where the dock shouldn't be in the water during a major flood event. It's the staff gauge is put to an event that's much less than the regulatory. So during those major events, although the dock is designed to withstand a major event and is signed off and the engineering's there, it's still going to be removed based on the application and based on a certain elevation in the park. So that allows staff to come in, access the dock in the dry, and then remove it. Appropriate flood-proofing measures, protection works, and dry access during times of flooding, erosion, and other emergencies are provided. So this also was shown through the application and the engineering that was provided. And then no feasible alternative site outside. Well, it's a dock, so there are no alternatives. We can't put a dock on land. And then the others also are criteria that needed to be followed as part of the application. After staff review of the application, we do note some shortfalls. the dock and the hard work can't be sufficiently anchored to withstand flows during a regulatory flood event. That's one. And then to add, it doesn't meet internal guidance due to the proposed location. So that internal guidance document that's mentioned in the staff report is an internal guidance document. So it doesn't consider that the town is a municipal partner. It considers a dock proposal from anyone in the watershed. So justification's been provided through that engineering contingency flood response plan. Removal during a flood event, staff feel that's sufficient because there's built-in redundancies in that plan. There's also built-in redundancies in the engineering and design to support the dock. It'll be temporarily installed during lower risk times of the year, that being May to September. We also recognize that the town's a municipal partner. They have a higher level of resources as would a private landowner, and can respond appropriately during times of flooding and to offset the cost of damages. To note, it's not something we would approve for private ownership. Staff recognize the value in providing an opportunity for all residents to access the Thames River for recreational purposes. So if we look at our organizational goals, we can see that, yes, we want people to visit our rivers. We want our river to be accessible. We want to highlight, all the work we do as our organization. And we recognize the value in providing that opportunity through a dock. So with that being said, staff recommend the hearing committee of the Upper Thames River Conservation Authority approval of application 84-23. That's it for me.
Thank you very much. I will ask if the applicant has any material they'd like to present.
Hi, thank you, Mr. Chair. We were going to just have our mayor say a few words, and then I will. I think our CAO might have a couple of items to say. Then I'll finish off.
Thank you, Your Worship. Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship Chair Petrie. We really appreciate the opportunity to present today, and I share your pain in the past about Zoom meetings and unpleasantness, and I hopefully today our goal is to have a Zoom meeting that there could be a lot of future pleasure for people from it. So I thank you for those remarks. I also like to thank everyone on the committee and the staff for allowing us to appear today. We all know what we're up against these days with the province and the speed of changes and the amount of work that a lot of people don't realize that has fallen into our laps as a result of regulatory changes. So we are appreciative of the willingness of the Upper Thames to work with us through this process, because this is a very unique application. My job is to talk about the importance of the dock to the town, and I prepared a few notes, if I can, Your Worship, to speak to. Outdoor recreation offers opportunities to educate and promote conservation among the public. These words come from the Upper Thames River Conservation Authority 2016 Environmental Targets Strategic Plan. The town of St. Mary's also has a strategic plan which similarly directs staff to optimize our outdoor spaces for recreation, programming, and events. Much has changed in our world since these two documents were published, and yet opportunities for outdoor recreation and conservation are more important than ever. The pandemic showed us just how important it is to have natural spaces for people to enjoy, and as housing density increases, this need will only continue to grow. That's why this accessible dock project has been such an important priority for us. We see it as a chance to enhance St. Mary's outdoor recreational offerings in a way that will help build respect for our local waterways. The Thames River is already beloved by our community. This came through loud and clear when we surveyed the public about how we can enhance Milton Field or the Flats. Over 600 people, nearly 45% of our 1,350 survey respondents ranked using the river among the top ways they spend time in the park. Many respondents stated that having an accessible dock should be considered an important priority in the development of our park. Our kayak rental program saw over 800 users in just a few months last year. This is a free service. All this interest and usage exists without the presence of a proper dock, let alone one that can accommodate people with varying needs. Now imagine how that usage could grow with a fully accessible public dock. We think the possibilities are tremendous. We want people on our waterways. So too do our local partners. Community Living St. Mary's offered us a $35,000 donation towards the installation of an accessible dock to support their vision of a community where everyone belongs. In our minds, Expanding access to the river creates opportunities for education, a vision that's also shared by you people, the Upper Thames River Conservation Authority. We're already capitalizing on the captive audience of those who use our free kayak rental program. Each user receives a handout explaining how to safely navigate our Thames River. We've also offered free in-person water safety sessions and guided historic paddling tours, and we've conducted social media campaigns focused on river safety. We believe that all these efforts, along with the installation of an accessible dock, will work together to build a culture of safe river usage and increased appreciation of our waterways. And I believe that is all of our goals. Thank you again for your time today. We really appreciate the effort and the cooperation that's gone into this proposal. I look forward to continuing to work productively with the Upper Thames River Conservation Authority on this exciting project. And I'll now ask our CAO, Brent Kittmer, to further comment on this initiative.
Thank you, Mayor Strathdy, and through the chair, I just want to echo the same sentiment as Mayor Strathdy. First and foremost, a sincere thank you to the chair and the members of the committee for hearing our application today. Probably more importantly, a thank you to the Upper Thames staff for your time, patience, and effort over the last couple of years to work with our staff through this application and bring it to the position it's in today. In St. Mary's, we're an interesting community because we're very fortunate to have the Thames River and the Trout Creek as prominent features in our downtown. And you'll see this all over the province and all over the world, really, that most communities that have this natural amenity find ways to embrace it and to weave it into the community fabric. In St. Mary's, it's safe to say that our residents have always found a way to use and enjoy the river, but the corporate we've not always actively worked to integrate this into our downtown. It was kind of an afterthought for many years. In 2017, our council adopted a new strategic plan that challenged the corporation to embrace the river as a key feature in the community. We were also challenged to revitalize that major park beside the river known as Miltdonald Field. We're now well into that Miltdonald project, and I can tell you that the dock is one of the most desired projects by our public. From family members, staff, public, and anybody who go down and use the park, they're very excited about the prospect of a dock that's coming in, especially an accessible dock. But corporately, we understand the complications of installing a dock in Miltdonald Field. That point is not lost on us in any way. I can assure you that council and our staff were very much committed to doing the dock and doing it right. We're not afraid to commit the resources that we need to make sure that everybody has the assurance that this will be a safe installation into our waterway. Even today, we're trying to provide a comfort level, not only to the Upper Thames staff, but also the committee, that we're committed to doing this right. And we're trying to demonstrate that with a number of people that we've made available on this call. Each of the individuals that you see here representing the town today have worked on a certain aspect of the project. And they're here today to make sure that they can answer any of the questions that you have, so that you have the assurance that this will be a safe installation that doesn't have any sort of detrimental impact in the future. So I won't go through the introductions that Andre had provided previously, except to say that if the committee members do have questions, we have staff on the line who are project leads and understand the intimate details of the project flow, staff who were involved in developing and who will in the future be involved in administering the standard operating procedure for an emergency response, as well as our engineering experts who are responsible for the overall design of the site plan for the project, as well as the dock installation. So with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Morin, and he's going to walk through some of the more particular details of our project.
All right, thank you, Brent. And again, I just want to reiterate as well, thank you for the committee. Very big thanks to Ben and his team and staff. We obviously have got to know each other quite well over the last couple of years as we've gone through this process. So I won't go into the full details of our application. Mr. Defoe certainly presented a very fulsome review of everything that we've provided. But within the application, we did provide a number of documents that both deal with some of the items that our mayor spoke of. On page 22 of the agenda, there's a summary of items that both describe how we came up with the need and things that have happened in order to establish that in our strategy, but also the solution that we've created and brought forward in collaboration with Upper Thames staff as we've moved forward with this application. So Along with the technical documents, our engineers are here to answer those questions. I won't go into that detail. Again, Mr. Defoe did a pretty good job of demonstrating our plan, our ideas around that, but we are here to answer some of those questions. But wanted to, again, also say that this project is going to lead to the success of making St. Mary's not only a unique place to live, play, and visit, but also showcase that commitment we continue to have in inclusivity, diversity, and the environment. And we expect this project to continue to grow in collaboration with Upper Thames in the learning and the environmental processes we can put in place on that property. It is, again, a tremendously used asset to the community, and certainly there's opportunities that both Upper Thames and the town can use to achieve many of our aligned goals. And again, reviewing your strategic plan with our strategic plan, we do certainly see a lot of alignment as we proceed. And again, I agree with some of Mr. Defoe's comments that we are aligned in very much the same way when it comes to this project. But having said that, I do want to talk about really the main issue in relation to this application, which is the floodproofing of the dock. And I want to make it clear, and again, Mr. Defoe certainly presented exactly our approach here, but we did take a three-pronged approach to making sure that this dock was flood-proofed for this area. And the number one piece, obviously, is that it's a temporary dock that is meant to be installed around the May long weekend of each year and removed around the Labor Day weekend of each year. That's what our plan is moving forward. And while we acknowledge and certainly agree that this area is prone to flooding at various times of the year, the time of the year whereby we intend to install and have the dock in place historically has not been as susceptible to flooding, and certainly not extreme flooding that you've seen in some of the photos and some of the history with the town of St. Mary's. So that's step number one, is to make sure that the risk is lowered just by the fact that we're installing the dock at the least amount of riskiest time when it comes to a floodplain criteria. Number two, as Mr. Defoe explained in the presentation, our concept is not to have the dock in place if and when in imminent weather that is going to be susceptible to moving the dock or displacing the dock. We have a plan in place whereby an easy plan in place so that our staff can quickly and easily monitor what's happening with the water levels. And at which point in time, we then have a plan in place to remove that dock. It's fairly simple to move in and out with our resources that would ensure that the dock is not in the water when flows and water levels start to get to a certain point. So again, that's point number two in our contingency plan. And then obviously the third piece, which comes to the engineering side of Mr. Defoe's presentation based on the application that we submitted, is we've used our engineers to design a stabilizing mechanism, an anchoring system that is based on that July 2000 storm, which was the biggest storm we've seen within the time period historically that the dock would be in place, that May to September timeline. So July of 2000, we've used that data to engineer the anchoring system in order to ensure that that dock will not come out of place in an event like that. So, so again, we believe that demonstrates a reasonable or more than reasonable protects the interest of the town, Upper Thames, and any downstream properties moving forward as we move forward with this application. So with that said, we do know that we've done a pretty good development of this and a lot of conversations with internal staff, UTRCA staff. We will continue to have those conversations on a move forward basis as we learn and see how we can improve that plan moving forward and make tweaks as we go. We also want to enhance the park in relation to other environmental features and education and conservation as well. So again, we want to continue to work with Upper Thames staff in relation to that park as we move forward. So with that said, I won't dive into the details, but certainly we are here and prepared to answer any questions that the hearing committee may have for us. And I will turn it back over to the chair at this point. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Do UTRCA staff have any questions of the applicant?
Nope.
Seeing none, did the applicant have any questions of UTRCA staff about their report?
I do not believe so, no.
Yep. Do the hearing committee have any questions of either party? Paul, please.
I have two questions of the St. Mary's staff about the contingency plan to remove the dock in the event of an unusual midsummer high water event. And my first question is, do you have an estimate of how long it would take to remove the dock?
I can take this one, Andre. Jeff Wolf here with Town of St. Mary's, and through the chair, thank you for the question. When we were looking at the original policy, we were looking to remove the dock from the waterway as quickly as possible. We actually want to remove it from the site as part of this process as well. So if flood levels do continue to rise, we don't have to continue to worry about it. So there's a 20 to 25-minute period of removing the screws that are there, unhooking the chains, and then strapping the dock with one of our loader backhoes and dragging it onto shore, where our staff can work safely away from the water. And then it's another 25 minutes, we think, probably to dismantle it and place it on a trailer to remove it from the site.
So potentially less than an hour. So you don't need a whole lot of lead time.
That's right. So that was developed with in consultation with representatives from the dock supplier as well.
Okay. And my second question related to this is the town comfortable that you'll have staff and equipment available to remove the dock at a time when you may be dealing with issues of potential flooding other places in the town?
I can take that one again. Excellent question. And we worked the actual geodetic elevation that we chose for the policy. We spent a lot of time going back and forth with Chris Tasker from UTRCA staff, trying to determine where the best elevation would be. We ended up selecting a relatively low elevation in the sense that we wouldn't be experiencing flooding on the rest of the site. There's sort of an elevated berm that goes around, it's like a ring road around the site. The part that the dock is going to be installed at is sort of on the lower side of that elevated berm. So this particular area is sort of, the water starts to come up prior to us having to deal with other locations flooding. The main concern for us was the safety of our staff when we were removing it. So we were looking for the water level to be, like, our staff to be working in no less than 1 foot of water, or sorry, no more than 1 foot of water, while they were, spending that half hour taking the dock apart and pulling it up on shore. So the risk is pretty minor that we would be dealing with other issues at the exact same time, in the sense that it would be very early on in a large flood event, where the rest of those issues wouldn't have started to pop up quite yet.
Okay, thank you for those responses. Those are all my questions, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Are there any further questions? Mark, please.
Yeah, I noticed in your report on uses that accessibility or access to the river was very, very important. How now would somebody get a single boat, obviously say a kayak, into the river now to enjoy the waterway in St. Mary's? Are there several smaller docks? Are there docks by people's houses, or is there literally very little in the way of docks right now currently?
So I can take that one. And certainly while there are a couple of private docks a little bit upstream that we've noted, most people are just using the shoreline in relation to launch those kayaks now. And in essence, there's 2 or 3 spots where there's a couple of rocks where people can get in and out. And that's, again, one of the areas where we see real assistance with health and safety, because people are accessing the river all along that shoreline. But there is there is a boat launch at the southern portion, but again, not a great piece for launching a kayak or a small canoe or small boat at that point. So again, right now, people are just launching at various locations along that riverbank, which none of them are conducive to launching a a canoe or a kayak.
Yeah, it would seem very enticing to have a river go by your parkland or any area and not be able to sort of put a canoe or anything into the water because you were, let's say, legally not allowed to do so because of the health and safety of a shoreline. So I would certainly concur with your answer there. Thanks.
Any further questions from the committee? Not seeing. Is there any other comments that anybody would like to make prior to us going into deliberations on this? Seeing none. So we will now move into a hearings. I will ask for a motion to move into deliberations from the committee, and that's moved by Dean and seconded by Paul. Discussion on that? Seeing none. All those in favor? Opposed? So since it's an electronic meeting, we'll just separate, and if you want to stick around, we may have an answer here for you. But, we'll let you know either way. So thank you very much, everybody, for coming out today, and we'll hopefully see you shortly.
That's correct.
That way. I'm gonna stop.
That's a do the playback.
Is it live there? Yeah. Okay. Coming back in.
Okay, and if you just let me know when everybody's back.
Just make sure everyone's got a connection.
Yeah, you're good.
Okay. Sorry. Apologize for that. I'm waiting on a call from a water heater company to come fix my water heater, so that's why that's on. So I can. Are we back live streaming? We are. Perfect.
Yes.
So I'm happy to report that the committee has voted to approve the application based off the recommendation that's contained in the report. And so it'll be nice to see some access to the water. And certainly want to thank St. Mary's and staff for working together to come up with a plan, and that can be approved by the committee. So the official documents will be coming out. But I thank everybody today for participating, and happy boating.
Thank you, Your Worship. We greatly appreciate the time and that everyone's taken for this. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, and with that, I will ask for an adjournment of the this April 25th hearings committee.
Sorry, Brian.
But oh yes, sorry. Oh yeah, we need to adjourn this one first. So adjourn this application. Moved by Paul, seconded by Dean. All those discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. And now we'll adjourn the actual hearings committee meeting, and I'll have a mover and a seconder for that. Moved by Mark, seconded by Dean. Discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? And that is carried, and we are adjourned. Thank you very much, everybody. And Tracy and Dean, you're going to stay on the call, correct?
Yep, we can do that.
Perfect.
Live stream.